What is truth? What is truth? We hear this question from Pilate in our gospel reading today, and it is one that we could easily ask in our culture today, right? What is truth? Now, some say that we live in a post-truth era. A post-truth era. We hear the term fake news all the time. It's blasted throughout our media, and we ask ourselves, what is truth? What is truth? What can I really believe? How can I discern if a source is trustworthy? Can we really tell the difference between fact and fiction today? Whether we're talking about politics, or we're talking about climate change, or any other divisive issue that we are facing today, a quick Google search can give us headlines like "The Death of Truth," or "The Assault on Truth," or "Notes on Falsehood," or "Our Post-Truth World." We are steeped in a culture of blatant lies, sly exaggerations, doctored images. Anybody? Doctored images, wild conspiracy theories, fake news. Objectivity no longer seems to exist or even matter. At this point. True is false, false is true, and anything can mean anything, really. So what does this sobering reality have to do with us right here, right now? Well, this week, the church celebrates the reign of Christ. We call this day Reign of Christ, or Christ the King Sunday. This day is sort of a hinge, if you will, in the liturgical year between this long season after Pentecost, called Ordinary Time, and the beginning of Advent. Today is the last day of the Christian year, and next Sunday, the first Sunday of Advent, is the first Sunday of the Christian year. It marks the beginning of the new Christian year. And so on this Reign of Christ Sunday, we pause. We pause to reflect on the meaning of Christ's reign over the church, over the world, and our whole lives. We pause to reflect the meaning of Christ's reign over everything. We pause and we reflect on questions like this: what kind of king is Jesus? What does his rule look and feel like? What does it mean to live under his kingship? As we celebrate this high holy day, I admit that the lectionary gives us a rather odd gospel lesson. On this day, one might expect Jesus to be seen in all of his kingly glory. One might expect that we would see a scene of him being transfigured or dazzling on a mountaintop. Or maybe watch him rise up from the waters of baptism with the voice of heaven thundering in his ears. Or maybe we might witness one of his most spectacular miracles. But no, our King doesn't appear in any of those majestic guises. Instead, the Gospel of John offers us this picture of Jesus at his physical and emotional worst. It's a picture of him at his very worst. We see him arrested. He's disheveled. He's harassed. He's hungry. He's been abandoned. He's sleep deprived. And he's standing there before the notoriously cruel Pontius Pilate, who's questioning him. Now, if I were going to write Jesus into some kind of kingly scene, this would definitely not be the one that I would have chosen. But here's this astonishing reality. If there is any story about Jesus that can smack all of the smugness out of us, all of our arrogance, all of our gleefulness, all of our scorn, then surely this story is the one. This week, our king is arrested. He's a falsely accused criminal. He's a dead man walking. And his chosen path to glory is humility and surrender and brokenness and loss. So, what does any of this have to do with our current crisis of truth versus untruth? Well, let's take a look at this exchange that happens between Pilate and Jesus. Are you a king? Pilate asks Jesus. He asks this question a few times, and maybe he even asks this with like this sense of arrogance, or the fact that this bedraggled person is taking up his very valuable time on a day, a week that is already tense and very busy in the city of Jerusalem. It's the time of the Passover. It's busy, and all the people have come. Who is this person who's coming and annoying him? Why is he even here? Why did they bring him here? And Jesus responds, "You say that I am a king." It's rather cryptic, if you will. He's implying that Pilate's question is really the wrong question. And it implies that Pilate's assumptions about who Jesus is and about power and kingship really just are not relevant to the ways of God. And so Jesus goes on, For this, I came into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." And Pilate's response to Jesus is one that it echoes down to us throughout all of the ages. It's a question to end all questions. It's the question that we started with just a few minutes ago. Pilate asks him, What is truth? Now, we will never know if Pilate asks that question out of contempt or out of curiosity, or whether he asks him as a way of seeking or in anger. But it doesn't really matter, because Jesus doesn't answer. Jesus doesn't respond, or at least he doesn't respond with words. He doesn't respond with words. He doesn't engage Pilate in any sort of philosophical conversation or dialogue. He doesn't offer this governor some sort of pithy bumper sticker answer. Instead, Jesus embodies his reply with the whole of his life. His silence implies, you're looking at it. His silence says, you are looking at the truth. I am the truth. In other words, truth isn't some kind of instrument, or it's not some kind of weapon. It's not some kind of slogan that we can slap on a refrigerator magnet. The truth is Jesus. The truth is Jesus. It's the life of Jesus. It's the love of Jesus. It's the way of Jesus. Jesus himself is truth's most complete embodiment. Jesus is truth. So what does that mean in our post-truth era? What does it mean to worship the King of truth in our post-truth era? What does it mean to belong to the truth in our culture that increasingly invalidates or denies the truth? And perhaps most importantly, how can we bear witness? How can we bear witness and embody truth, or bear witness to the truth, this complex truth, as the story of a birth and of a death and a life and a resurrection, in a world that prefers sound bites or tweets or clever memes? As I reflect on this passage, I wonder if Jesus came to testify to the truth, if he is truth, if Jesus is the King of truth, then what do we as his subjects, we as his followers, we as his disciples, what do we owe our King? What does loyalty to the truth look like? The truth that Jesus embodies in his life and his death and his resurrection is not some sort of self-aggrandizement. It doesn't serve to bolster his power or his authority. It's actually quite the opposite of that. Instead, it humbles him. It empties him. It takes away his life. As far as I can tell, Jesus doesn't privilege any version of the truth that sidesteps humility. He doesn't privilege any version of the truth that sidesteps surrender or sacrificial love. He doesn't secure his own prosperity at the expense of other people or their suffering. He doesn't allow holy ends to justify debased means. He doesn't make honesty optional whenever truth strikes us as something that's inconvenient. And Jesus never aligns himself with this brute or dishonest power to guarantee his own success. This is our King. Can we stand for truth as Jesus does? Can we belong to truth as Jesus does? Can we tell and can we keep on telling the beautiful and the hard and the cutting and the joy-filled and pain-filled, powerfully undeniable stories that we know to be true about Jesus? This Jesus whose very identity is truth, and whose best expression of power is surrender. Today, on this Reign of Christ Sunday, we are invited to declare our intention to live a life of truth. We're invited to live lives of truth, a truth that transcends our own individual limited perspectives and that allows our community to hear the voice of Christ as the guide and as the hope for living. As we close out to this liturgical year celebrating Christ's reign, and as we consider the coming year, the new year that begins with Advent, the new church year that begins next week, and the new calendar year that begins really in just a few weeks also in January, how will we live lives that reflect the truth of Jesus? How will we as a community of faith make an impact on our community for truth? How will we bear witness to Christ, our King's kingdom, right here in the world and the community around us? How will we live as faithful disciples of the truth? I ask these questions of all of us in community. I ask them as a community, living and working together to build Christ's kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. And I ask these questions of each of us individually, too. Are you a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ? Do you commit your life to Him and to His truth? Are you willing to accept Jesus as your King to rule over your life? We are often tempted by the lure of the things of the world, of the power in this world. In the end, according to John, the Gospel of John in the next chapter, the Jewish leaders rejected their faith. And they bowed to the empire. They said, "We have no king but the emperor." In what ways do we bow to the empire? Do we live in the reign of God, following our servant king, Jesus? Do we live lives that reflect that kind of service? The kind of service that Jesus lived? Do we reach out to the least and to the lost? Do we seek to serve others rather than to be served? Do we testify to the truth of God? It is the truth that Jesus came into this world to bring love and forgiveness and justice and grace and mercy. That, my friends, is the truth. It is the truth. Capital T, truth. Jesus is the truth. What is truth? Jesus is the truth. Jesus and His ways, Jesus and His love, Jesus and His grace, Jesus and His mercy, Jesus and His justice are the truth. They are truth. So let's live that way. Let's live that way. Amen. Amen.